Okay, so hi and welcome everybody. Congratulations to all the teams that have made it to grand finals of Hart House High Schools. It is an incredible accomplishment and you should be very, very proud of yourselves. Okay, so on OG we have Salesforce Tower, Jacqueline and Ethan. On OO we have Ocean Heights, Angela and Andy. On CG we have Reforma 432, Dora and Claire. And finally on CO we have TunTex, Jason and Jessica. Okay, so just to introduce myself, my name is Anette, I'll be your chair, use she, her pronouns, and I invite the rest of my panel to introduce themselves, starting from Adam.
Hello, my name is Adam, go any all pronouns.
Brandon, any and all, good luck.
Hi, I'm Elgin.
Hi, my name is Arpi.
Hi, I'm Emily. Best of luck.
Okay, great. And if we can go through the teams, starting with OG, just to clarify speaker positions and pronouns.
For speaker on OG, Jacqueline Huang, she was present.
Second speaker, OG, Ethan Q. First, Andy.
Second, Angela.
First on CG, Dora.
Second on AG, Claire.
First on CO is going to be Jessica. She, her, please.
And second will be Jason. He, her, please.
Okay, great. Brandon will be providing time signals with his phone, so it will ding at appropriate times. But other than that, I don't think we need much else, so feel free for the PM to begin this debate. Here.
Move the mic now.
Okay, I don't know if this is working. I'll take my PYs usually. She, her pronouns are fine. And I think Raina said thank you speeches. So I guess I will do a thank you speech, definitely not to stall for time. So first of all, thank you so much to my partner for all of the tournaments that we've done, and maybe broken at, maybe not broken at. This is probably our last ever Hart House High School, so making finals is pretty cool. And hopefully we'll see you all next year as adjudicators, hopefully. Thank you to my parents, my dad, for driving me around and sinking tons of money into this activity, and thanks to Ethan's parents also for carting me around. That was pretty cool. Thanks to all the CAs for organizing a wonderful tournament. Thanks to all the judges that we hit for giving us good calls that allowed us to make it this far. And thank you to everyone that we went against. Really good rounds, amazing opponents, and all of the friends that I got to make during my debate run. Cool. Oh, okay. Hi, Justin. It's really anticlimactic. Woo!
Please find a seat.
Can I just start? Panel, a messy breakup and the memories of that messy breakup has the potential to ruin your future relationships, your relationship with your ex, and critically your relationship with yourself. We think we solve all of these issues on government. We're incredibly proud to propose. First, I want to do a little bit of characterization as to what we think this breakup necessarily looked like and why you're not going to get any positive outcomes from continuing to remember it. Then moving on to two constructives. Firstly, on why you get better romantic relationships on our side or worse on their side. Secondly, on why you waste time that you could have spent improving yourself. First on what we think this breakup was likely to look like then. The fact that it was messy probably means that it was not mutual, or at the very least, there was a very irrational reason for it. And the mechanization for this is that if you had a rational reason to break up, then you can justify it to yourself. We think that oftentimes humans have natural self-preservation instincts that try to prevent them from jumping into the same toxic relationship. So if you understand that it was bad for you and you understand that a breakup was the best decision for you, it was unlikely to be as painful, it was unlikely to be as messy. We think that for those reasons, it was likely an irrational decision, or it was something that wasn't mutual, for example, like you got dumped, right? The second thing is that we think this person likely became part of your identity. Because the more a person becomes part of your identity, the more the loss of them hurts you, the more it's bad for you. So what you're going to end up doing likely is you're going to want to jump into premature new relationships. You're going to want to fill in that gap that that person once placed for you. For example, perhaps you always used to send cat reels to them, and now you have no one else to send cat reels to. So you go on Tinder and you find a random guy to send cat reels to. I think that's probably not a good incentive on our side. Cool. Moving on to constructives. First, I want to get worse relationships on their side. Yeah.
Do your preferences change as an individual?
What? Okay, so first of all, I think that your preferences are going to change as an individual simply because of the fact that you're first of all, circumstances change. So perhaps it's just you're unlikely to meet each other again. Secondly, we think that the spark that you have that catalyzes a new relationship doesn't always exist symmetrically in all instances of time. You probably change simply by virtue of the fact that you've changed up and grown as a person, even if you go through this procedure. That person has also probably changed. You might just never meet each other again. Who cares? Cool. First, I want to get worse romantic relationships then. 3 maxims. First, people are not objective. You're going to remember the highest highs and the lowest lows. So step into everything you love thinking about the trips to the Eiffel Tower that you had, the passionate kisses you had under the rain. So we think that you're unlikely to be very objective, and that's probably bad, because when you get into new relationships with other people, you're going to impose these expectations on partners that fundamentally cannot meet them. Perhaps that looks like you find a rebound. Perhaps it looks like embodying the chorus of Glimpse of Us. We think that other people are unlikely to know you as deeply as your ex-partner did, and you're going to compare them to them, thinking, hey, why does this person know us as well as our ex-partner did? Why doesn't this person, meet my needs in the way that my ex-partner did? We think that this is all incredibly harmful. And there's 2 very important impacts to this. The first is that it just makes all of your relationships far less fulfilling, right? Because if you step into every single new relationship, immediately comparing them to your ex-partner that you miss so extremely, we think you're unlikely to get anything good out of it. We think you're significantly more likely to get into arguments. You're significantly more likely to give them less, be less kind on them when they make mistakes. These are all bad things. Second, we think it just hurts your partner for absolutely no reason, right? They did nothing wrong to you. Even on our worst case, if you just never go into these relationships anyways, we think that's still a good thing because you prevent an individual by being hurt from situations that were fundamentally outside of their control. Second, on if you get back together with your partner then. First, you go into a relationship with your ex with an expectation of something because you've done it before, but it's probably no longer the same because they've already forgotten all of their memories. So perhaps you're going to go into it trying to recreate your first date, trying to recreate your first kiss, trying to get them to remember a version of yourself that will never exist again. I think that's incredibly harmful insofar as you're going to become increasingly dissatisfied with the relationship that you pursued with your ex. You're probably going to end up having a lot of arguments with your ex as well because they can't remember the references that you're making. They can't remember the things that they used to love about you, and that's probably going to hurt you very, very deeply. We think that even in opposition's best case, if we get together with their ex, it's still better on our side if we completely forget about them and we start off on a blank slate. And the comparative here is quite clear, right? So if you completely forget about that past relationship, the first thing you forget about is all the expectations that you impose on your future partners. You're going to step into new relationships without any expectations. You're going to be better able to enjoy those relationships insofar as everything is fresh, everything is new. You're going to feel that genuine happiness that you felt with your ex. Second, on wasting time in individual improvement then. This is a huge opportunity cost for the individual. So perhaps you spend late nights wondering what went wrong. Perhaps you think about them while trying to find other people to fill the void. And that's all a lot of time wasted that you could have spent on other things. Critically, you probably did things like alienate your own friends. You lost sight of your own goals. You lost time and will continue to lose time if you don't undergo this procedure. This is for 2 reasons. The first is that you probably shared the most important parts of your identity with them, meaning you lose parts of yourself that would have been incredibly important to your healing. And these are parts of yourself that would have been most important to things like getting over them. So for example, losing yourself into something you're good at, which now you no longer can do because every single time you deliver a debate speech, you think of how good your ex was at delivering mechanisms. I don't know. Second, you don't want to go and find new hobbies because you waste so much of your time thinking about them and you're likely to engage in very bad hobbies like jumping into new relationships. Well, the only thing that is on your mind right now is I want to fill the void that this person once had. I want to find someone to share these parts of me that I don't think I can access through my friends, etc. When you're much likely to jump into new relationships rather than finding better outcomes or better coping mechanisms. Why is that all better on our side? Well, first of all, you just forget about them, right? You don't remember the pain of the breakup. You're more likely to remember things like your friends. You're going to spend more time with them. You're going to continue pursuing the hobbies that at least made you happy in the past. I think for all of these reasons, we're incredibly proud to propose.
All right. We thank that speaker for a fantastic speech. We now call upon our first speaker from OO to continue this debate. Thank you.
there's not a lot of sense. Wait. Am I audible like this? Good. Is it okay if I don't use that? I feel like I'm loud now. I also want to give a thank you speech. Thanks to all my friends who were here and made the tournament really fun. And big thanks to Angela. I'll begin on my first. Your ugliest moments are your defining moments. And a breakup is not the end of the world. And we would say that when you lay on your deathbed and reflect upon your life, you'll be happy for the lessons that a toxic high school ex taught you, and grateful for the way that it shaped your life, the lessons that it taught you to not go into those relationships again. And to undertake the procedure is what we would suggest to be the biggest regret of your life. We're very, very proud to propose. A couple pieces of refutation to opening government. The first thing they say is that there's better relationships in the future. This is incredibly unrealistic. Obviously, you know the new person you have a relationship with is going to be different, and it's incredibly unlikely that you're going to pose the same expectations you had for your previous partner onto them. If this mechanism is true, that would mean that it's true for every single breakup. They have to explain why a messy breakup is a unique mechanism. They didn't do that. But the second, on individual improvement. The only way to be a better person is to feel pointless pain and overcome it. Because if you can't, you will never learn how to overcome that pain. And notably, you won't always be in the irrational state that opening government tells you. We think you can change as a person, and it is possible for you to overcome these things and become rational once again. Two arguments coming out of side opening opposition. The first, while these memories are so important for you that you cannot let them go, and the second, when you become far more reliant on this procedure in the future. The first, on why memories are so important. There's three reasons why they are. The first, because this is a long-term relationship. It was a very large part of your life, maybe somewhere from the beginning of high school into university. That the things you do are shaped by this person. We think at the point at which it is an incredibly long-term relationship that you have spent and dedicated a lot of time to this. There's two implications to this. The first, this person has to some degree shaped your character. So the preferences that you have, the different kinds of songs you enjoy, or the food that you love. When you get into a relationship, your partner puts you on a lot of things. This is incredibly important to know. But the second, that you learn a lot of lessons just by being in that relationship in the first place. That you learn how to love because this might have been your first love. Or if it wasn't, you learn how to love as a better person. These are incredibly important lessons because we would say these are things that you learn within the relationship that you forget on opening government. What we would say then is that if you were to undergo this procedure, that you lose the things that are so important to you and consequently lose a part of yourself. That these things have shaped your identity, and we would say they're incredibly important. The way under here is really important. That people are scared of the unknown and they're scared of change. They're naturally scared of something that they aren't familiar with. And the most scary thing is losing parts of your identity. When you no longer know who you used to be as an individual. And to forget so much and to lose so many parts of yourself only serves to magnify the way that you perceive this change. That you will now think this is a complete change of your identity. That you no longer have the parts of you that shape who you are. That your biggest preferences are the ones that change. We would say, in this sense, this significantly magnifies how important these parts of your identity are to you, irregardless of whether or not how actually important they are. It's incredibly important because as an individual in this state, it means you lose vast amounts of your identity. We think we reject that. A second argument then on why we become more reliant on this procedure. Before I move on, closing.
Do most people under deathbed appreciate trauma?
I think most people under deathbed will appreciate that having gone through trauma, you don't go through it again. Okay, first thing. After using this technology, we think you're going to be significantly more likely to use it. This is for three reasons. The first, because you know how to contact the dude. You didn't have the card before, you now have his phone number at all times. The second, you know this is a quick solution. It is a quick solution when you're in an irrational state. But the last, because it's affordable. Because it's an easy way to access something that quenches your pain. This is literally weed. This is literally how you forget your memories because you get high and you don't have to think about it. But on theirs at the house, it's permanent and you lose these parts of your identity. Two reasons why this is really bad. The first, because the lessons you learn from your relationship are incredibly valuable, outside of the fact that it was important to your identity. It teaches you to be an individual person that is significantly better. And importantly, you don't think people are perfect. It's very likely that you learned a lot of lessons within this relationship that you can hold on to for the rest of your life. Notably, without change, it is harder to find another relationship because you haven't made yourself a better individual. Notably, this kind of being a better person can literally just be unable to cope with pain as much. I can look in the greater scope of things, not be magnified on a single relationship. This is the kind of lesson at its bare minimum. At the best, we think this changes your life because it teaches you to be a better person. The second, you will use this technology for other things because there are going to be many sad moments in your life. you will have to learn how to cope with them because there are going to be more instances of sadness. And when you think that this is the easiest way out, and this is the way that you don't have to cope with these solutions, you lose the most important memories. On opening opposition, we would say your defining moments in your character arc are now quashed. That you no longer have the most important thing, your lowest of lows, that allowed you to be the highest of your high. That your saddest moments that defined you no longer exist anymore. On opening opposition, we would say that it's better to be sad. Because once you have been sad, you have learned to be a person who can now live with being sad. It means that you can learn to overcome this sadness. And if people are defined by their lowest moments, if that is true, we would say that you need to hold on to those lowest moments and the memories you had from those moments to be a better person. We're very proud to oppose.
We thank that speaker for a wonderful speech. We now call upon our second speaker from OG to continue this debate. Here's Eric.
This is not enough room. Can I move all that over and then put the microphone on this side?
No, just like turn it. Turn it.
Okay, it doesn't bend that way. Whatever, I'll grab the papers from here. Okay, yeah, I know I wasted a lot of time, but thank you speech is still obligatory because I wanted to thank my parents, my sister, obviously Jackie for carrying me through round 3 especially when I was so dehydrated that I did not understand anything that was going in the round, all the opponents, all the friends, and definitely Hart House. Second year breaking, finally made finals. The downfall, oops, sorry, wait. Sorry. The downfall in the opposition case is very simple. They don't properly characterize to you what you as a person look like after this breakup. We characterize to you that this is a breakup in which you don't understand why you broke up. This is a breakup in which you are still emotionally attached. And in this case, I would like to clearly characterize to you at the top of my speech what you're like to do that before going into everything the opposition said and just beating it up. Okay, let me be very clear on what the opposition side of the world actually looks like. I want to be clear that there's an inherent messiness to this breakup. Clean breakups, the ones that they are trying to defend, allow you to do things such as accept what went wrong and accept that this is the reason why you couldn't be together. You're able to rationalize this because when you have a clean breakup, you're less emotionally attached. When you have a messy breakup, you are more incentivized to do things such as wallow over and wonder what went wrong. Because why? Because we have a natural tendency to try and rationalize things. But specifically in a messy breakup, there is no way in which you can actually, no thank you, figure out what went wrong. And I'm looking at the crowd to see if they're not here, so it's fine. But the idea here is that if you keep thinking about what went wrong, you will eventually delve into a state of overthinking because they are never going to tell you what went wrong, so you're going to make up a bunch of excuses. One day it might be, I wasn't good enough here. One day it might be, they were a terrible person. And I want to be very clear. You are also likely very emotionally not good in this state. So in that, let me be very clear what you look like. You are a person who is searching for an answer, but you're unable to think rationally, and you don't even have any idea what you're searching for. So in that case, we think it makes it very hard for opposition to claim that you can just think about it. And then they're like, oh, but people move on by messy breakup anyway. Well, yeah, they do because they eventually find someone else, or they move on and completely forget about it. You never find the solution to why this breakup failed. You only realize after a certain point in time that's not worth it. We saw that issue immediately under our side of the house when you save a bunch of wasted time. That's your best case scenario. Go. Sio.
Okay, so wallowing in despair sucks, but so would you also use this machine when there are other irrational things that happen to you, like getting rejected from university?
it seems very, like, there's no fiat here, right? Like, this machine can probably erase your bad memories of a relationship. This by no means actually translates into other things. We think it's a bit of a stretch and outside the scope of this debate to say that you're able to do this. But even so, in their best case scenario in which this applies, we would still say that in other issues, such as being rejected from a university, you're able to rationalize it as a person because you know, maybe I should have been able to do better here. This is where I went wrong. You're able to get those answers because your ex, well, not your ex, but the people who are on that side can tell you what went wrong. You can't do that in a messy breakup in which your ex got all their memories removed. So in that, you're never going to actually get the proper closure, and even in opposition to best case. That's why they end up losing. Then let's talk about the main opposition push, which is that this becomes a part of your identity. I think the likely counterfactual is that the parts of your identity that you sacrifice for this relationship will gradually end up seeping back into your life. For example, your friends, your hobbies, golf, right? These are things that you probably gave up in return for the relationship that you now will probably gradually incorporate back into your life. And this is very good because no matter how much you were part of the relationship, under their side of the house, every time you see the hobbies that you do together, you get reminded of them and you end up wallowing over that in sadness. I can't even give this speech without looking into the crowd and seeing if that person is there. So let me be very clear on that. You will become attached to them within this hobby. It ruins your hobby for you. I want to be very clear then. What was your final thing? I want to be very clear then. They talk about reliance. I think I've already taken this on. And you can only move on under their side of the house when you completely forget about the relationship. We just do it faster. Let's then be very clear on the other impacts you're likely to have under our side of the house that we're woefully unengaged with. Because their only engagement was to say that, oh, well, you can live and you learn, and they try to outweigh it. They don't live, they don't learn. Here's the difference. One, under our side of the house, you get enormous overthinking and pointless wallowing. Empirical example. But also, you get things like emotional damage and wasted time because you're largely going to reminisce over this type of thing. You're going to look over it and wonder what's wrong when there literally is no answer to be searched for. And you might be wondering, why would a person do this? It's because you don't know that there's nothing to look for. You think that there's something, but in reality, there's not. Given the info slide, we can assume that you don't know what you're looking for. However, you think you do, you're lost in that. That's really bad. On future relationships then, and this is also unengaged with under their side of the house. Their best response was to say you can learn about what you did wrong. What did you do wrong? You can't find that under their side of the house. The difference is here. Under their side of the house, no matter whether it's them again or a new relationship, you start imposing expectations of your relationship onto them. And I want to add more degree of analysis here, which is that you likely, given that it was messy, you likely viewed your relationship through rose-tinted glass, which means that the memories that you have aren't the real memories, but rather the way that you perceived it. So when you then inevitably get a relationship, whether it's them or someone else, you're going to put these irrational expectations on them. You're going to ruin your future relationships as well. Incredibly proud to propose.
We thank that speaker for an excellent speech. We now call upon our second speaker from OO to close out the top half of this debate. Here.
I want to thank my partner Andy. I want to thank all my family members that have been very supportive for me when I'm debating. And also, today's my grandma's birthday. I really miss her this weekend.
Proposition undermines the value of identity when they say, quote unquote, it's just your friends. It's further than that. It is the ability for you to communicate, your actions, the daily habits that you develop with that person you probably live with, the way you perceive your closest individuals and the way you would like to treat them. These are skills that stick with you for longer than the pain that you feel. And on that basis, these are things that you should never forget. I'm going to do a couple of things in this speech. Firstly, refuting everything you've heard out of their side, and then going over the 2 arguments that Andy gives you and why that is the path to victory on our side. First off, refuting everything you've heard out of their side. The first argument is that you're less likely to get into good future relationships. I have a couple of responses. The first is that rarely will you actually find a person that only gets into a good relationship once. And the structural reasoning for this is that we go through more instances of negative emotions as we grow. So we learn to cope with loss that equips you to actually step into more relationships and grow in the future. And that ability is actually taken away on their side of the house when you take away the important experience that allows you to cope with the stress and this pain. We think that is very important. But the second response that I have here is that their claim on rebounds or something like toxic relationships is unlikely. Given that you love them so much, you're probably not going to do all of these bad things that obviously are not really good and not very fair for your previous partner. And even if this is the case that you're going to have a rebound on someone, it's probably short term because soon, because you love them so much, you're going to realize that they're not near the amount of emotional fulfillment that your partner before would give you. I think that is just insufficient. But the last response here is that their concern by the end of this is really that the quantity of relationship that you get on our side will go down. And we are okay with that because you learn to choose carefully and enter relationships out of rationality. That isn't because you raise your expectations in ridiculous ways. It means that you learn to accept different types of people and you learn to judge them in more comprehensible ways. We think that is something that's very important to keep in mind. And their claim on going back with your partner is just kind of ridiculous. Yes, we agree. We don't think that's likely. We don't support that either. Now, the claim from their second is that these are messy breakups, and therefore you don't know what you actually did wrong. But the problem is that our claim is that you learn from the relationship process, not just the fact that you broke up with them. For instance, you learn that you can communicate your love by not just saying I love you every day, but maybe giving them a hug. These are simple lessons that you learn from the ability to interact with other people that is very important. But also, I just want to really importantly note that in the vast majority of instances, the problem is actually that people don't realize that it was their fault because we have bias towards ourselves. So this actually points people in ways that allows them to actually reflect on these instances that would have been possible on their side. But the second thing to note here is that even if you are confused, the simple lesson of being able to cope with loss is necessary and very important. The last argument that we get from their side is that you waste your time because you will be drowned in pain every day. But again, part of filling the void is to spend your time on enjoyable things. We see people getting back to hobbies that was taken away by the time that you spent with your significant other. So either way, there are ways for you to cope, and that ability to self-develop is a way to cope that we think can only happen on our side. What does Andy tell you then? 2 crucial things. The first is how memory is very important to you. For a family member that just passed away, you may feel pain. But the first thing you do is not to utilize your ability to perceptualize the memories that you have made with them and the interactions that you have with them. Instead, is to remind yourself of the things you take away even when they're gone. Given that these memories are important, people are terrified of losing them. You're terrified of losing the ability to love. When things that you were taught to you, you don't remember them anymore. Why is this important? Because it is a fundamental part of our individual development. The ability to love someone so deeply requires a detachment of self that allows us to empathize and care for others and the people around us. It allows us to develop better relationships with not only our significant other, but also our friends and family members. On the side of proposition, you forget the lessons that taught you how to love. You forget the impact of love that it has on you and therefore its importance. These skills can never be obtained to nearly the same extent on their side. The way then is very simple. Pain of loss is short-term, but the skills follow you for life. Relationships are the only way for you to actually experience these things. That is the only way for you to learn these lessons. Before I move on, go ahead.
Romantic relationships are the exclusive mechanism by which people learn how to be people. Realistically, this is one relationship out of many. You just remove this pain that
But presumably your point is that this is a very long-term relationship, so you probably learn the most from this. Now, what Andy also tells you is that this is an addictive form of escapism, but you would use this for struggles you face in the future as well. This is important because Proposition's argument is that pain is regrettable, but we think pain is valuable if you can extract things out of it. Your lowest moments define you. The function of this is that this is actually the prerequisite of their argument. If people don't learn from their mistakes, the same problem is likely to occur. They're likely to make the same mistake, and they're likely to feel pain again. So Prof thinks pain is bad, but it is way more likely to occur without the development that our memories exclusively give us. By the end of this round, we think that your actual life is not just contained by this one simple relationship. What actually matters through this relationship is the amount of memories and the skills that you have learned that will carry on with you in the future. From there, I come to a close.
Okay, we thank that speaker for a wonderful speech. We now call upon our first speaker from CG to start out the back half of this debate. Here, here.
Can you hear me? Wait, Angela, how do you do this?
It doesn't work. You have to like scream.
Thank you to my partner Claire, thank you to my parents. Yada yada.
You that you learn from your mistake, but nowhere in this motion does it tell you you were the reason that the breakup happened. A lot of relationships are subjective. You'll probably never be able to understand the specific lesson that went wrong, and that is the reason we are so proud to propose a few things then today. First, onto our case of why better coping, which means better well-being and mental health, then onto the entire refutation of the OO case. Okay then, let's just move on to our extension. Because first let me frame what happens after a long-term relationship and why this pain is so unique, which I don't think OG does enough. Because we tell you that the unique impact of this relationship is huge. Because let's talk about this relationship. You probably have invested your time in well-being. You woke up next to them. You probably shared a residence for this long of this time. This was your person. When something bad happened, you wanted to tell them. When something good happened, you also wanted to tell them. Half of your thoughts, if not all, was about them, how much you love them, the little things that you remind them of them. So what happens then, when this ends, is you feel a void. And notice here that in this long-term relationship, they are not just a placeholder or on your roster, they are literally your love. That is to say, when you lose your favorite person, when you lose the person you thought about and conversed about the most and loved the most, you will feel the void when they are not here. You turn to tell them a funny joke, they are literally not there. The framing then, also here, that is very important, is that the other party literally already took the pill. Because we see what happens in status quo after a long-term relationship and after a very messy and hurtful relationship, is one finds solace in the fact that the other person is also going through it, that they also feel the pain, and they're going through what you are feeling through from this separation. But with this pill, then the fact that they have already took it, there is no longer the comfort that they are also hurting just as much as you. So you hurt even more, because this is like why people hurt so much when they see their ex posting a new girl, because like, how did you get over it that fast? How are you already moved on? I'm still wallowing in this relationship. What happens then when you do not take the pill is we see that on opposition side, you are literally in misery. That is to say that you are unable to not think about them, and that is literally all you do. We are going to prove why we, on the short term, are 108% able to guarantee in the short term your happiness. Because of the fact that you are no longer putting your life on standby. When you're able to erase all of your memories, you're able to go back to your old self before this relationship. That is to say, you forget about all the things that you're always thinking about, all the overthinking that you are doing. What happens after these long-term relationships? We tell you in the status quo, like people often hold themselves up, right? They are so torn over this ex that they put their entire life on standby. You see this with people literally not eating, not being able to go to sleep, not going to work, literally not going outside. If you've watched any of your friends go through this, or literally watch any romance like movie where they break up, they are a complete mess. It is so hard to watch them go through this. That is to say that on opposition, that is the state that they are in, and that is the state that they are unable to get out of for a good 6 months, for a good 1 month, or 1 year. You're unable to get back to yourself. And we tell you on proposition, when you're able to go back to their job and not like sacrifice 6 months of your salary, when you're able to have that certain likelihood of yourself and your mental health, that is better. But that there's no benefit from remembering, because the other party does not remember you, and you're only hurting yourself by remembering. But also you go through a lot of personality changes. That is to say, you probably develop a lot of trust issues or commitment issues, because a relationship this big and this huge takes a huge part out of you, and you are probably more likely to enter into relationships very cautiously. But now let me wash out future relationships. I'll get to in a second. Maybe you get better future relationships, but maybe you get worse. Because we will probably always compare relationships, if not this long-term one, the one before this one. So maybe you have another relationship after this pill, and it ends well, and you get into another one, you will still probably compare. The reason you do this is just because you're a human, and you will probably always think about what could have been, and this is normal. So that is to say, opening missed out on proving the link of the tipping point of how much more you will compare this relationship. And we win on the metric of likelihood, because on CG, we are able to give you a clear and certain result. You are no longer feeling the pain, you forget, you're able to go on your life, and you're able to live that to the fullest. But now let's get refutation onto OO. They tell you that you need the experience to have better relationships. But because we tell you this is untrue, because you can perceive the bad thing to contrast to the good thing. That is to say that if I can perceive how harmful it is to get my arm cut off, and so I will probably not go into any places where I can see that my arm is getting cut off. That is to say that even if going through the experience is going to give me more lessons, it is unclear as to how they prove the tipping point of why not perceiving the pain is just as effective as going through it. Then they tell you the only benefit that opposition wants to push is that you need to learn this pain. But we tell you there's no guarantee to which just because you went through something, you learn. Because sometimes what happens is you go through it again and you justify what the new person is doing. It's okay. You are stuck in a cycle because that is what you are used to. And this is why you see a lot of individuals that have gone into toxic relationships continue to go into toxic relationships. Because that is all that they know, and that is all that they search for in relationships. So just because you have gone through a bad relationship does not mean that automatically the next one you choose is going to be a positive one. We tell you on side opposition or side government, you're able to guarantee a good life, you're able to guarantee your positive mental health, and not one where you're just arbitrarily going to have a better relationship or arbitrarily going to learn suddenly how to have a good one. On that basis, I'm so proud to you.
All right, we thank that speaker for a fantastic speech. We now call upon our first speaker from CO to continue this debate. Hear, hear.
Before I do my speech, I just wanted to thank my partner Jason, who's also one of my best friends, and also thank my coach Alessandra, my coach Levi, who's here, and all my beautiful debate friends. Thank you guys so much for giving me this opportunity. I'm very excited to have finally broken into the finals of Hart House. Don't be sad it's over, smile because it happened. I'll be doing 3 things in this speech. First I'll review OG and CG, then I'll give you 2 extensions. My first extension is about why breaking up and leaving is a part of the experience of love and a relationship, and my second extension will be the effect on your family and friends, as well as their perception and how that alters over time. First on refutation then. OG essentially just says that, future relationships will be bad, you have certain expectations. I have 2 responses. The first thing is, you probably won't impose as many expectations because something in your relationship had to have been wrong for you to break up. So you don't want to have that exact same person again. But maybe even if you do, then you're not ready for another relationship. So these memories just force you to self-reflect and realize that maybe you should develop yourself a little bit more personally and practice a bit more for getting another relationship. But secondly, your partner will never be exactly the same, so you need to learn to manage expectations eventually, as you can't just keep getting the surgery over and over. So you will have to have an ex, and you have to learn to work through those things. Okay, and onto what CG says about basically you just be really, really sad. I think my extension will deal with this directly. But even if you are really, really sad, maybe you just have to deal with those things and talk it out, and you need personal development, and this is the catalyst for that. My first extension then, on why breaking up and leaving are part of the experience of love. government bench has a fundamental misconception of love and relationships, in that they think that this love and the associated experiences end at the point at which you break up and no positivity can derive from it thereafter. But we would say that reflective love and retrospective love are some of the most powerful emotions you can experience, and love is in fact constant and persistent. And that the characterization I want to make here is that love is not never made to be forever, because we are changing and growing as people. You enter into a relationship a completely different person as you come out of it. So at the end of the day, you're not meant to live in a relationship forever. And for most people, relationships are not things that they will end in forever. And for even some marriages, some people start out with romantic love but end with platonic love, because that's just not where their love was meant to go. What this necessarily means is that a messy breakup is only a signifier that there were extremely strong emotions in the first place. Because humans can't always be expected to be mature, especially when the risks are very high. So the messy breakup is probably actually just a signifier that you really love this person and this experience was something that's fulfilling and meaningful for you. The implication of this characterization is that you can practically not just that you practically can't keep getting the surgery constantly because you're being hurt over and over, but that love is meant to be retrospective. Your experience that love when you think back to your first meeting, your first date, or meeting their parents. It's constant in their behaviors and actions and influences they had on you. And just because you decided that now you don't want to be actively with that person, or maybe you're just like in different geographical locations so you couldn't be together, or maybe something happened that fundamentally changed the way you view them, it does not mean your love for them ends. It does not have to be romantic and active for that love to exist. That love can be passive in the back of your mind, knowing that this experience happened, knowing that the experience brought you meaning, that this experience brought you some sort of positivity, and you're able to derive some benefits from it happening in the first place. But the acknowledgement of this transformative, powerful experience is the single most important thing. And it's different than just influence from your partners. What we're saying is that even years later, even 30 years after you broke up with this person, you can still think back to this memory and still feel love in that moment and feel the powerful emotions that we would say make you human. What is the impact of this love and this reframing of love? Firstly, love is a beautiful emotion. We want people to experience it as much as possible and in as many ways as possible. So diversity and quantity of love is what makes life simply so meaningful. Even if it is nostalgic love, it's an emotion that enriches your life and gives it meaning. And this is something that you can obviously hold on to in times of need, and something that gives you emotional support in times of duress. But secondly, you have an emotional obligation to preserve these memories and preserve this love for your partner, seeing as they have lost it forever. They may have chosen to erase that love because they're emotionally not developed enough to recognize that they want to experience this in the future, or maybe they're just somebody who has a lot of trauma and they can't add any more trauma into their plate. But what we think is that for you personally, if you erase this love, all these emotions, all of the very incredibly intimate things you experience with that partner will simply be lost in the abyss of life otherwise. So if you really cared about that person, you carry on their memories and carry on the love you eventually had for them. No thank you. The weighing of this point is, firstly, this is an emotional bandwidth which sidesteps OG, because you don't have to get into a new relationship to experience that love. But secondly, we fulfill OG's burden of love better than them, because explain why love is a specific mechanism of growth and experience and something you can't get anywhere else. The second extension on the effect of your family and friends as well as your perception of you. Although you may forget your love, your family and friends won't, because there are so many experiences that you had together. Maybe they met your coworkers, maybe they joined your mom's book club, and now your parents really, really love this person as well. And now your shared memories of this ex will just have to be erased as a part of it, and this is why you will harm those around you and others you love. And that, firstly, if your family and friends now have to lie to you, that is a huge burden you are placing on them. For your parents to forget about that person who lived in their home for 6 years, these are things that you are forcing on your parents, which are also other people you love, and now your relationship with them is built on a lie. But secondly, because they aren't able to benefit from those reflections of love. But thirdly, because you will lose respect of your family and friends, to the extent to which you can't confront reality and the experiences you had, they won't love you in the same way they did before, and all of your fundamental relationships are altered. We're proud to oppose.
All right, we thank that speaker for a fantastic speech, and we now call our second speaker from CG to continue this debate. Hear, hear. Upon our second speaker from CO to close out this debate. Hear, hear.
but it's a struggle. Obviously, thank you speech. I want to thank my partner Jessica. Obviously, she's helped me break curses at this tournament. Love that. I want to thank my coaches Alessandra and Levi. Could not be here without you. I'd like to thank the Hart House WordCom sitting around the room. And I'd like to thank, I guess this is unorthodox. Julian is somewhere in here. I saw him walk in. Usually I do first speeches, but he's been my second speaker for a while, and I've been doing second speeches because he has shown me what good second speeches look like. So thank you to him. Even if I had crashed and burned at my final high school tournament, I would not have wanted to forget it. Because the fact is, there were things outside of the debate and the result and the end product that I cared about. And it's because I built up an identity around that my friends and family knew me for. And it's because of that that I'm very proud to oppose. Two things that I want to talk about in this speech. Number one, the coping process, the immediate coping process. These are the team's path to victory. And secondly, I want to talk about how this helps you grow as a human being. So first, the coping process. I just want to note the kind of ridiculous frame that CG comes out and says, that this is comparable to trauma and you want to forget it because all trauma victims want to forget. By their logic, anyone who goes through a breakup just wants to die and forget all about it. I don't think this is charitable. Even the messiest breakups were presumably something that you're able to move on from. But more charitably, they say that, you will never be able to get over this relationship because it's impossible to rationalize what happened at the end of a messy breakup. I peeled wide and said, there are other irrational things that happen to you that you will never be able to rationalize, and Ethan said, no, that's out of the debate. But that's not what the point was, right? Because theoretically, I will never be able to rationalize why I might have gotten rejected from university, because I will never be able to understand what the admissions officer thought of me. But the fact is, I can reflect on what happened during that process. Even if I can't get a straight answer from it, I can at least learn something from that experience. Number two, we just think it's unlikely that you're going to take this out on your future partner and impose expectations on them, because you were probably the one that was hurt by this messy relationship. And given that you love that person and you felt the hurt that being unloved brought you, probably you're not going to impose that same burden on someone else. But third, I just like to weigh this out and transition my second theme by pointing out that the rest of the debate's impacts operate under a situation where it doesn't matter whether you find a new relationship or not. The other impacts happen to apply to your entire life. Great, now let's talk about how this helps you grow as a human being for your entire future. The gut claim on here is that you are going to waste your time and that forgetting makes change easier to move on. We'd like to note that the most important change does not come unprompted. Maybe OG is right that it's easier to get back into superficial things like a hobby or a sport, but the more substantial parts of your growth are harder to realize unless someone was there for you and cared for you and you felt this deep emotion of love. If you're in a long-term relationship, your partner saw these things and helped you get through this. And this is where Jessica's extension comes in, about love persisting and being a crucial motivator. Because there's probably a reason why people sometimes reconnect with exes in the future. Because even though they're different people and the love may not be the same, the fact is that love was there, and being around them and having those memories allows you to re-experience that passive love over time. Because at some point, you make sacrifices for your partner. You've traveled for them. You moved. You might have even given up a career for them because you love them and because that was so especially motivating. And that might have helped you form your motivations as well. On the imperative, you ask yourself, I'm now in a worse place than I was 3 or 4 years ago. Why did I do all of those things? What pushed me to the point where I gave up a career, where I moved to a city that I never wanted to move to? And we think it's so sad to feel that because you're missing the motivated thing that made you happy, the thing that made your life worth living. There are 2 reasons why this impact puts us above OO in this debate. Number 1, because this impact shows that you're not just stagnant, as OO says, you're also actively regressing, because you're at a different situation. People know you differently. You're at a different stage of your life when you break up with your long-term partner. You regress because you don't understand why you're in that position now. But reason number 2 why we take this over OO is because our claim is specifically about love and the motivation that it gives you. It's not about wishy-washy traits that other traumatizing experience or other growth experiences might give you, like, I don't know, losing a debate tournament or whatever. This is specifically about love and what that can do to motivate you as a person. But Jessica's second impact also helps put us above OO, when she talks about the impact that this might have with your family and friends. And I have to know how important this is, because in a long-term relationship where you truly did love them, your friends and family knew them as well. Your parents met that person. Your friends heard you gushing about them, and you integrated them into all of your social circles. When you forget this person, you also forget the memories that they had, but your friends and your family won't forget. They'll wonder, Why did you move on so easily? Why did you give up this perfectly good relationship? Why did you choose to forget all the great things about this person? And there are 3 reasons why this ends up being important in the debate. Number 1, because when romantic love fails, you turn to other sources to help you reflect and grow. Unlike what OO posits, we're able to explain that you need people around you to grow from experiences in your life. You never go through a breakup alone. You talk to your friends and ask them, why did they break up with me? What could I have done better? This claim is logically upstream from OO because OO doesn't explain how that growth happens. We explain that friends and family make that possible. That talking with them and forcing you to reflect is the unique mechanism to moving on and taking the growth that OO wants to claim. But this also helps put us above OG and CG because we show that wallowing does not mean that you're at a standstill. Wallowing in your despair means that you're reflecting with your friends and family and you're asking them what you can do to improve as a person and the things that might make you a better person, friend, brother, whatever. For all these reasons, you vote no.
The junior grand finals will now proceed in this room. Everybody who wishes to spectate junior grand finals, please stay. Judging